Hello, Air Warriors, and welcome to another episode of Chevrons, the podcast, the enlisted force. I am your host, Chief Master Sgt. Sean Sullivan, and I am joined with our PA extraordinaire engineer,
Sergeant Jay Whitaker. How we doing, Chief?
We are doing great. Now, we got a couple of guests here today, and this is kind of an episode that I was kind of really looking forward to because we have so much that we can bridge into. We can talk about family. We can talk about partnership in the Guard and what it means to you. You can talk about breaks and services. There's just like so much here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first of our two guests, and that would be Master Sgt. Townsend. However, we don't know which Master Sgt. Townsend it's going to be because we've got them both here. So, you know what? We're going to start with our brand new HRA. So, Master Sgt. Townsend, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks for having me. My name's Deborah, and I started my Air Force career long ago in a unit that my dad served in. And I came into the Guard so that I could pay for school. And then I eventually took a full-time job working in the Guard. And then it became my part-time job, and this is the place where I met my husband, Master Sergeant Brad Townsend.
And how many years of Guard time do you have now?
I have 21 years of service with 17 counting for retirement almost, and over the course of about 30-something years.
Yeah, so how long was that break in service?
That break in service was about 13 years.
Wow.
2000 to 2013.
All right. And Master Sgt. Townsend, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Chief. Thanks very much. This is Master Sergeant Bradford Townsend. I am currently the MSG First Sergeant, just graduated from school. So I enlisted in 1993 at the age of 23 at the 101st Air Control Squadron, a unit that my father was in, along with Deborah's dad. So they served together, and then, fast forward, we served together, and we can probably go back to kids' Christmas parties that we were definitely at long ago. So I joined, like I said, in '93, and I went into a mobile comm unit, satellite communications, wideband communications, and it was really awesome. It was a really awesome transition because previously to that I was a auto mechanic, so working with my hands and setting up all the equipment, and that really tied things together for me. So I did that for about 7 years, and I had transferred down to the Cape in late '96, I think, down to the 267 Combat Communications Squadron.
I know it well.
Yes, and I got a job as a full-time technician down there. So I did that until my 7th year, and then I decided to get out and go work in the commercial world. Because at the time, cell phones were really becoming very, very, very popular in the year 2000, and then so I was a cell phone technician. So my break in service was 15 years.
Wow.
And then I decided to come back in at the age of 45.
Wow. A couple of parallels there. Also, 267 Combat Communications was my home when I came into the Guard. I also took that long break, and when I came back in, I was 45. So, as I said, there's a lot of parallels here. As we move forward, I am going to dispense with the Master Sgt. Townsend because it was fun at the beginning, but it's going to get confusing to the audience. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to address you by your first names, Deborah and Brad. As we move on, we have specific questions. But every question I'm going to ask is going to kind of be like for both of you because I want your perspective on it. And I think that one of the things that interests me first is like what was your decision process in getting out of the Guard when you left it when you did? And then on the flip side of that, what was your thought process in wanting to return back into the Guard? So Deborah, you first.
Sure. The first time I joined the Guard, like I said, I was doing that to put myself through college to get some money to help assist go through college. And then I found out that I didn't want to be in college full time. I wanted to go do some other things, so it didn't work for me, and I went IRR. So I didn't get out. I just wanted to defer, and then I came back because I wanted to finish my college full time. So I came back in, took a different career path, took the tech control at the 101st, and then I went back to full time college and part time guard. And then that transition led to a full time job. Before I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was a little bit of college left, and I had the retraining in the guard at the 101st, and they said, hey, we've got a full-time position, would you like to come on board? And I thought I could make as much money as I would be going in debt. So I flipped the script again, and I took the full-time job at the 101st, and I was in there for a while before transitioning down to 267 for the AGR position. And at the time, the AGRs were few and far between, and they were not viewed as kind of the resourcing balance that we have today. We really honor life-work balance for no matter what your status is today, guard or technician. That really wasn't the case back in late 90s. So I found myself as an AGR, full-time AGR, a new mom in the telecom boom, and I had all these pressures to, I could go out on the outside world and make more money and have a better life balance than what was being offered to me in the guard as the AGR status and a new mom. So I really left because of the rigidity of the job structure then. And I went to the commercial world, and I found that balance. I could have my career, and I could have my kids, and I could have life balance. I fast forward, I see that the guard has changed perspective, and I really like that. I feel that the guard makes the effort, as they should, to help people maintain life balance. And if that had been in place back in 2000, I probably wouldn't have gotten out. I probably would have stayed in. But we can't go back, so we have to look forward.
But you definitely feel that we have improved as a guard and as a state with that balance, accommodating that.
Yeah, I think my perspective of when I had my kids to when, what I see now, the focus on family and flexibility is vastly improved.
And have you seen, and with having both perspectives, and currently, have you seen any degradation in services or capabilities or what we provide with allowing more flexibility and allowing to have a work-life balance? Have you seen any decline from when you were in last time till now?
No, I think you get the opposite effect. I think you get people's loyalty. You've invested in them. They've invested in you. When you cut ties over a temporary situation, you both lose. And so the investment that we have in our airmen should sustain through some ebbs and flows in life cycles, such as parenthood.
Exactly, and we're trying to learn that as a guard, this evolutionary process and how important people are. It's just really, really nice to hear that we're doing it the right way and it is having the right effect. Because from my perspective, I've seen only improvement, enhanced capabilities. I personally think that Massachusetts has the best air warriors in the world, and allowing that, it's just it's good to see. It reinforces what commands have been trying to, and what the Guard as an entity has been trying to improve upon, so we don't lose any more great leaders like yourself. Brad, same question.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of for the same reasons I got out, because we had started a family. We had our oldest was born, Hunter, and then she became pregnant with our second child, Ethan, and the commercial world was calling, and it was just the military just wasn't able to hold on at that time. Again, for the same reasons that Deborah was just talking about. So my enlistment was up, and I decided I would get out and do the commercial world thing. And like I said, I did that for about 15 years. And at that point, she had already gone back in towards after like 13 years or so. And so she's in and she's talking the talk and she's walking the walk and she's wearing the uniform. I'm like, whoa, I miss this.
Yeah.
I miss this a lot. And the kids were a lot older at that point. So we could, they could kind of self-sustain a little bit,
Right.
So I called the recruiter and I said, hey, can you show me around a couple of different places? And he brought me around the wing, and he brought me over to CE, and he brought me to a couple different shops that were offering like incentives. But then he brought me over to the structure shop, and he said, hey, we got a carpentry shop. I said,
Tools.
Tools, that's all you had to say.
yeah. I said, what else do we do in here? We do concrete work. Anything else? He said, yeah, welding. I said, welding. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked.
And I was thrilled because he had also been looking at security forces, and I just didn't think I had the heart for that.
Oh, geez. Yeah. It's a tough
tough
assignment.
one.
Yeah. Our cops, I love them. That they know how much I love them, but I also know how demanding it is for them. And you get to go build stuff all day and play with tools. Yeah, I could see why.
I was looking hard and fast at security forces. I wanted to challenge myself, like really, really challenge myself physically and mentally. But then CE really did it for me because again, I'm very mechanically inclined. I like to do stuff and make things happen. It's a big drive for me.
Yeah, and I kind of remember you coming into the shop. I was doing safety at the time. It was before I became a first sergeant, and that changed the trajectory of my career. We're going to be getting back to first sergeanting in a minute. But I remember seeing you around, and I'm like, hey, there's this, excited older dude here and playing all these power tools and whatever. And at that time, I hadn't realized you had taken that long break and it brought you back in. So it was like really rewarding for me over the last 10 years or so, 8-10 years. I can't remember how long exactly it's been, but just to see your progression as you go all the way through. And Deb, I got to know you early. I think it was before the Warrior Wellness that we did, but even before that, and then seeing the same thing, seeing you advance all the way through. So that's going to bring me into my next question. You both came back into the Guard in jobs that you're no longer performing. As a matter of fact, so far out of your comfort zones originally, it's a big change. Steb, I'm going to start with you. What was your drive to get out of your comfort zone and to get into something different? And what things did you try to get into before you got your current assignment?
Sure. So I came back in, and I had been in telecom and different variations of telecom, and then in the military. And then I went civilian side. I had a 13-year career in testing telecom and then managing telecom. So on my civilian job, I'm a program manager. And I would come in on drill, and I would see, we have this coordination of getting the people trained in their skill sets, but then lining up the jobs and getting the funding and getting the engineering, and things weren't always lining up. If the chain of events doesn't gel, then you can have a frustrating drill weekend because you didn't have the opportunity to advance in your skill set training that you needed. And it really just comes down to organization. And I was a little frustrated, and we were saying we didn't have any of some of the particular training opportunities we wanted because we didn't have the engineering packages done. So I talked to somebody and said, could I go over on the engineering side? And it came up in the unit career assessment of, what are we doing that's motivating you on the drill weekend and what's not? And to sit around and not feel accomplished at the end of the drill weekend was a frustration. Right. So those conversations came up, and it opened a doorway that I didn't even know it existed until I had that conversation of how else could I contribute within the squadron. And then, it turns out that those challenges are bigger than just, the unit here, because there's all kinds of connections that have to be made to have the funding and to have the jobs. So it's a bigger problem than a local squadron. So then I, again, kind of found myself at a ceiling of here I am in an advanced part of my career and my kids are grown, and I want to contribute at a higher level, and I wasn't really feeling like I was contributing. So then, therefore, I didn't really feel accomplished. And one of the things I've always kind of had an affinity for is teaching, and I was the kid at the end of the school year that would bring home the extra worksheets so I could do homework and play school over the summer. And then technology for our transition of the legacy TriTac to TDC, we became the trainers. Brad and I were both trainers for the 267 conversion. So I thought, maybe a training position. I could come in on the weekend and I could be the training manager, and I could help people ensure that they get their training that they need. I've done 2 different 7 levels, so I know the career path and the progression of having your first time through your schools, 3 level, 5 level, 7 level. Then when you retrain, you have different challenges and you have different timelines. And so I thought, well, I'll put in for training. And I was looking for a training opportunity, and I don't remember which came first, but a first sergeant position came up open, and I was like, well, I could do that. I've been the master of our calendar for years. The army of kids that we raised was just a matrix. It wasn't a calendar. How to have everybody ready for their school and their sports activities and have all their gear. And so whatever it was, it's just managing kind of that grid of accomplishments. And, everything that we do in the Guard, we can't do if we're not deployment ready.
Right.
So first sergeants have a big role in that, making sure that your home life is set, and if you need a family care plan, you have that, and if your finances are in order, and if you're on track for your career. And so just so many things and about being a first sergeant appealed to me. So I put in, I think, I lost count, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Probably not so many for first sergeant, but I had put in for training, I put in for first sergeant, and I was coming up second.
Every time. And I sat in on so many of those boards, and it was just amazing. It was never a 1 or a 2. It was always a 1A and a 1B. It was like the 2 best. And then it was, let's send him over to the incoming commander for selection. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, you got to come back. You got to come back. You got to come back. So we saw as many times as I boarded, I was on your boards, we saw the talents that you possessed and wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity. And we just love that you had the tenacity to keep coming back until there was a first sergeant position open, and I had put my hat in the ring for it. It was actually the group seat was open, and I saw the HRA position posted. So I opened up the job description, I looked at it, and it had a couple references to the DE&I directives and the ANGI, and some key phrases came out that really spoke to me. And it said that the job entailed providing airmen what they need to be successful, and then ensuring equitable access to the development opportunities. And I thought, boom, that's me. Yep.
I need to help get people around any false barriers to putting their hat in the ring for the Guard and for the individual. Because if we pre-filter on our resources, then we don't get the best out of what people have to offer. So I thought, exactly, I can put in for that. And then, at the same time, I encouraged Brad to put in for the first sergeant's role. And I didn't know whether I would, be second fiddle again on any of that, or if I even had a chance to be selected for the HRA. But I had gone through the training manager roles, and I had gone through first sergeant boards. And at this point, I was just really gonna persist that I wanted to do something to contribute at a higher level. And what I lack in patience, I do make up for in persistence.
You do. I want to take a second, Brad, before we have you answer the same question, because for all the airmen out here listening to that story, I want to surmise the key takeaways. That if you are out there and you feel that you are unfulfilled in your current position, you can either stay there and remain unfulfilled, and you can just kind of like let everything pass you by and become less fulfilled, or you can turn around and do exactly what Deb did and take the bull by the horns and go to your supervision and work your development plan. And this is the whole reason why we have these new airmen, the ACAs coming out, your airman competency assessments. This is why I keep harping to supervision, and it is my firm belief that your evaluation is not a process. The process is not the product. The product is sitting down and having those conversations, and you as an airman turning around saying, I feel unfulfilled. I've seen these things. I think that the Air Force and my career would be better suited trying something different, working that out with your supervisor, finding out what's out there, and having the tenacity to keep going and going and going until you achieve that, until you're in a position like you are now, where you're in a very satisfying, fulfilling position, where your skill set is going to be of immense value to the airman and to the wing. And you could have just sat there and said, you know what, this is not what I thought it was going to be, and it could have driven you out, but you didn't. So that's my take home with your story. That's why I love it so much, is that, you didn't let that happen. You realized that you had stuff in the tank. You let your supervision know. They saw it in you, and then you just kept going until they matched up the right opportunity at the right time, because we knew you were the right person for the right job. We just had to put the two intersecting together. And so I'm so glad that you are the 102nd's new HRA. I think that it's going to be great for both parties. And that's the way the system's supposed to work. And when it comes together, that's a great thing, because your supervision kept trying to provide you with opportunity. You let them know what your skill set were. It was recognized until the right fit was made. And that's the way it should be for every airman, and can be for every airman. So if you're listening to this and you're in a position where you're feeling less fulfilled, then seek that opportunity. Bring it to your supervision and find your way forward.
Oh, no, I just have a question for our wing HRA. Is just, how has the transition been, and how why do you feel that this is important, and why, especially now where we're at?
The transition has been, it's been slow and fast at the same time.
Right.
It's been fast because I was put right in. I was given the opportunity to, shadow my predecessor for a while, but then I wasn't really fully sanctioned as an HRA. You can only have one. That's the rule. Right. So, we had to wait for that official transition. And then I need my school date to come through, and I won't actually go to my orientation training until May, but between January and May, I'm it. So I've been off to the races and running and doing the aspects of the job that I can do. So it's a fast and furious ride, but I want to make sure that I pace myself, just like that's the endurance part is to do this right, is to really get in there and think of the long term and get the cadence that can be repeatable and get the engagement from our airmen in our community to make sure that we're representing our people and meeting our mission at the same time.
Outstanding. All right, Brad, your turn. Now, here you are, a distinguished leader, structure shop, doing the job that you love, and all of a sudden you say, I want to jump into the fire, into the volcano, and become a first sergeant with the maintenance support group. How'd that come about?
Well, so to go back in time a little bit, when I came back into the shop, I was 45, 46 years old, staff sergeant, and I immediately deployed to Kuwait. And I was there as just a maintenance guy, doing maintenance. And I could kind of see how things worked on the deployment and interactions with the first sergeant. And the first sergeant was helping a lot of different folks downrange. And then fast forward a couple more years to 2021, I deployed again, but this time as a master sergeant, as the shop supervisor for a structure shop. And I was downrange. I was doing a lot of first sergeant stuff as the supervisor, if that makes sense.
It does. Nope.
Because I had that previous experience of already deploying, and I'm taking a lot of these younger airmen with me on this next deployment. So they're all looking to me, Sergeant Townsend, what's up? What are we expecting here? So I was able to walk them through a lot of that process, and We had a lot of, there was some issues while we were downrange. They always pop up, but there was nothing we couldn't handle. And I was working with the first sergeant there, and it was just like, wow, this is extremely rewarding to do this, very, very rewarding. And I was doing a lot of it at home station too. I was relying a lot on my staff sergeants and tech sergeants to kind of run the shop for me, so I could do a lot of other things around the squadron. At the time, I was the UFPM for CE, so I was doing a lot of that, and that's kind of some first sergeant role, if that makes sense too.
No, it does. Yep.
And then the first sergeant, the CE first sergeant position became available, and I thought, well, I can stay in CE. I can do this. So I applied for it, and you were on the board, and I didn't do so well on that board, and I know that I didn't do that well, and that's okay, because I came back, put my boots back on again, the same way I put my boots on every day, and just went right back at it, and then another year goes by, and I had a conversation with Chief Ahase. I'm like, Chief, I need a mentor. It's kind of weird. I'm 51 years old at the time. I'm like, I need a mentor. He said, well, you came to the right place. You definitely came to the right place. Let's have a conversation. So he talked me through a few things, and he said the only thing that's standing in my way is me. And then within the next couple of months, that position opened up, the MSG First Sergeant position, and he highly encouraged me to apply for it along with a lot of other folks, and I did. And
yeah, that was a big. I wasn't on that board by that time. I was up at JFHQ, but it's my understanding there was a lot of people who put in for that position,
including Deborah,
including your wife.
Deborah, yeah. So I had to make sure that I really studied, and I couldn't cheat off her at that. So I studied really hard, and I took it very, very seriously, and I think by all accounts, the interview went very well, and
I would say it went well. Yeah. Considering the outcome, it went well.
And then I was literally tossed into the fire, like you said, within the next month. Yeah. I was shadowing the current MSG first sergeant at that time, and she was in and out, and then that was it.
Yep.
Here's the keys. Good luck.
I would say, having spent almost 7 years as a first sergeant, that I was never the MSG first sergeant, but I would, in hindsight, that is the biggest heavy lift. And it's because of the diversity of the mission sets, and it's because of how many people that you have to lead and fall into, and then you're also assisting and covering down with the CE first sergeant. You're assisting and covering down with the security forces first sergeant. It just opens up. It's like this whole big litany of places and jobs and comm and FSS, and I mean there's just a lot there.
There's multiple triads. I mean,
man,
you got security forces triad. CE triad,
different cultures too.
Yes, exactly, and they're covered with their own first sergeant. But then you have the MSG on the triad for that, and then LRF.
Yep.
I'm sorry, LRS, FSS, and COM.
Exactly.
So there's like 5 different chiefs, 5 different commanders, 10 different personalities. So it's it's challenging, but I love it. I think it's great.
It is. It to me was the most rewarding step in my career, but because I always like to reiterate to the audience, because right out in this listening audience right now, there's an airman that applied for something and didn't get it and feels dejected. And there's always 2 things you can do when that happens. You can say, yeah, you know what, that kind of stung and I don't want to do it again. Or you can turn around and do what you did and say, who can mentor me to get to the next level? Which you did. And you got Chief Ahase, great mentor. You couldn't have picked a better mentor for that, because he was the benchmark of first sergeanting. Led me into the first sergeant field as well. So you can fall back, or you can surge forward. And for anybody out here who's listening who's saying, geez, do I want to take a second shot at that? You have 2 success stories sitting right here. It's in the Townsend DNA, not to quit. You have our MSG, or the 102nd MSG First Sergeant, and then you have our new HRA. Two very rewarding positions because of tenacity, not quitting, turning around, finding it within yourself, finding the right mentors, and just driving on. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention your outer garment, Deb. What's that outer garment? What does that say?
This is the 127th running of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, did you stop by a tour shop on the way to get that today, or?
No, Chief. I actually earned this.
Oh, how do you earn that?
This was my 9th running of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, my God. I knew it was more than one, but I did not realize you have done 9 consecutive. Now, you could take those marathons that you've run in 9 years, just those marathons. That's more miles than I think I've run my entire life. So, wow. How was it yesterday? Did you have a good time?
Yesterday, I had a time. It was challenging.
Yeah.
And I had a really great first 6.2 miles. And then I had a nice visit with my parents. And they are my steady eddies. They are always at the 10K mark, and they have a little homemade sign with a little image of the course, Giant Hill. And then I started suffering between miles 6.2 and 7. So I had 20 miles of just gutting it out, just digging in. Because for this 9th marathon, I'm on my streak. When you get to Boston, you have to qualify. There's a prescribed qualifying time, and sometimes they have to reduce that field. And sometimes there'll be a percentage of that time that if, say, you get a 3:55 as your qual time, but the field needs to be shrunk, they'll take that down to a 3:53. So your qualification is not always as advertised, unless you have a 10-year streak. So that's what I'm on. I'm on a mission to get my 10-year streak. So I really needed to just finish in under. I needed to start. I needed to get there healthy to start. I needed to finish in under 6 hours to have it count as my 9th consecutive in my long-term quest to eventually get a qualifying time for Boston. Because I run a lot of miles, but I didn't start running until I was 43. I didn't start running distance until after I'd had all my children. And I really was motivated to come back into the Guard after the bombing of 2013.
Yep.
But it wasn't until the year later, at 2014, when I watched the survivors and those that could put on prostheses and run the marathon. And then I could no longer say to myself, I could never run a marathon, because I watched these survivors come back within a year and run that race that took their limb.
Right.
So I changed my ideas about whether I could or couldn't run a marathon, and I started training for a marathon. And so yesterday I needed to finish that marathon, and despite the discomfort coming on at mile 7, we'll say, I kept going. I did 20 miles of just pacing myself through the weather, which for me wasn't bad. It was cool enough to keep me from overheating.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people don't like the rain, but I had my best Boston in that 2018 year when it was the monsoon weather.
I remember that.
That to me was run or die, so I chose to run, and I ran really fast that year.
That was tough as a spectator.
So that year I made 4:14. That's the fastest I've ever run. The slowest I've ever run was not yesterday. The slowest I've run Boston was my first year. I did 4:58 and change, 4:58.57. I cut under the 5-hour mark the first time I took on Boston by just a minute. And yesterday when I came around the corner of Hereford to Boylston Street, I ran like I had to run for my life. I just ran like a bat out of hell because I could tell that the timing was 4:50 something. And I needed to get down there so that I could avoid having my worst time on the course.
Right.
So I had to adjust a lot of my goals this year because I didn't have a lot of time to do the full-on training. And I really didn't need to try and BQ on the course because it's really not within my range at this time in my life. In a couple of years, I'll get some extra buffer on that qualifying time. And so that's what I'm working towards. So sometime after the 10-year mark, when I just have to meet the advertised qualifying time, I hope to get a BQ. But yesterday it was really about, being persistent and being resilient and enduring and kind of keep that long-term goal. And it was suffering yesterday to be on my feet for 5 hours. A lot of those elites can't do 5 hours on their feet. So I did 4 hours and 57 minutes. And I beat my worst time by 1 minute and 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And I achieved my 9th Boston and my 13th marathon, all since coming back in the Guard.
That's awesome.
So for anyone who says that they could never run a marathon, for some of you that might be true, but for most of you, I guarantee if I can do it, you can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this year was the first year for the Boston Marathon to do the non-binary category, and they had some themes at the expo for resilience and inclusivity. And I thought that how fitting for me this year.
That's awesome.
That these were the bands. So I have my resilience and my inclusivity bands.
That's awesome.
The Boston Marathon.
That's cool. That fits so well into what you're doing and what we as a Guard are placing value in. So that's cool.
She's training for the Ruck for Hit, which is in 2 weeks?
Oh yeah,
2 weeks away.
Yes, that was another reason I had to keep my patience on my leg was dogging me at mile 7, but I have a really important event for the community. I'm doing the Ruck for Heroes in Transition. It's a 220-mile relay. Multiple teams made up of 7 members will split those 220 miles across the Cape, and we hit all the towns, and it's a fundraiser, and Heroes in Transition gives back to veterans in our community. And the significance of the 220 miles is it's the distance from Ground Zero to the Bourne Bridge for those that lost their lives in that. And so I have another event that is going to be very challenging, and it starts on Thursday, May 4th at midnight, and it will go through Saturday afternoon. And we wear a 10-pound pack for those of us that are slight in weight, and then a 20-pound pack for those of us that are a bit bigger, and that's symbolic of the extra burden that the military carries. So I will be doing that event this year, and this is the first year I've actually trained for it before the marathon, because I had always prioritized the marathon over training for that event.
Right.
And then with less training for that, I suffered more. So this year I did a lot more training for that ruck.
It's a great ruck. It's a great organization. Chief Laurie Moran, retired chief, had me involved with it a few times. Unfortunately, I'd be TDY during it this year. Otherwise, I'd go inside. It just seems like the last 3 years, there's always someplace I have to be over that. But it is such a worthwhile organization. It's kind of a fun ruck. I mean, people get scared. They hear the distance. Like, you're not doing all of it by yourself.
Right.
It's a relay. It's a team.
Steroids.
We have a chase vehicle. You'll be taken care of. So I have one more question for you guys. Otherwise, we could be here talking all day. But how is being in the Guard together at the same time? How does that enhance your relationship? And are there any detriments to both of you serving at the same time? Like, what are the pluses and negatives of both of you, especially in going into your current assignments, because you're both now in key advisory assignments for this wing. It's not like you're just come and go as you please because you're sliding under the wire. You are like in the limelight. How is it enhancing your relationship, and are there any negatives?
We talked a little bit about this on the ride over here, actually, because there's definitely some good stuff, and there's some challenges. I mean, we can no longer really have some of these conversations, these tough conversations, because of the position that I'm in and the position that she's in. She has a better understanding of what I'm going through, and I have a better understanding of what she's going through. But some of these things we just can't talk about.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
But prior to that, and then there's the the normal stuff, uniform inspections and deployments, and she understands and I understand if I want to do a PME, what it means to me. I just recently completed the Senior NCO Academy, and then I went right into the First Strat Academy, back to back, 6 days in between. So I was away from home for 10 weeks, and she was at home holding the fort down, keeping the kids going to school and keeping them fed and
fixing cars and heaters.
Yeah. She she has an understanding of that.
Right.
She knows, and the same goes for her. I'm sure that you could probably elaborate on that a little bit more too.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to understand what the other person's going through and to know without knowing, exactly what event happened. You understand their stress. You understand why it was a crazy drill weekend. We have things that we can help each other cope with, and mostly we just go for a run.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because I know you. But now, have you ever run the marathon, Brett?
I have. I've run Boston a couple times.
Yeah.
The first time was tough, but
Wow.
Marine Corps Marathon was much better, and then Chicago was even better than that.
The challenge is making sure that we have our calendar fit for, to accommodate each other's responsibilities.
Right.
We're double tapped in that, respect. So when we thought about it, we came up with a lot, probably more challenges than rewards, but the rewards are overwhelmingly, more powerful than the challenges. The challenges are logistics.
Right.
And the rewards are, the service benefits that you get and that pride of wearing the uniform. We did play rock, paper, scissors when we had this giant break in service of who was going to go back in, and I won. I got to come back in first, right? But then once I was in and he wanted to come back in, there was no way that I could say, no, you can't finish what you started, because I was on a quest to finish what I started, and you just can't replace the rewards.
Yeah, we get to share in a lot of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Which is great. She has a very much better understanding of what I'm going through and what she's going through, and we can just share in those rewards when good things happen. It's like, wow, yeah, and she understands and I understand, so it's great.
Well, like I said, we could keep going on forever. There's just so much here. It's such a great story, and that you're living this together. That's like a really cool thing. I mean, I go home all the time. I try to explain to my wife what I do and whatever, and she loves it and she's excited for it. As a matter of fact, she listens to every Chevrons podcast, has no clue what we're talking about, but she wants to be part of it. She wants to share with it. And here it is. The two of you get to share, the impact that you're making and the legacy of being guardsmen, where you're going together, and just two stellar careers. So I want to thank you for being on on our episode today. Did either of you have any final remarks or anything that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Well, I wanted to say thanks to you, Chief, and Sergeant Whitaker and PA. I listened to your podcast. Apologies, I don't know which one it was, but you were talking about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I listened to it the night before I was going into my first ever 1 hour swim. And
when do you sleep? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The whole time I've just been sitting across this table like, when do y'all sleep?
I have two modes. I have full on go and full on stop.
Okay.
So, believe me, I sleep.
She does.
It's part of marathon training. You get to take a lot of naps. But I was training because running does get boring, and so I've reached out to my extended growth, and I do the endurance events, but I also do triathlons, as I learned how to swim at 46. So, but getting comfortable with being uncomfortable stuck in my head of, I was on this challenge for myself. It was a fundraiser, and I wanted to see how many laps I could swim in that 1 hour. And right away I choked on water because I'm not a very proficient swimmer. And so I saw my water bottle at the edge, and I thought, well, I could stop and take a sip of water, and I would be so much more comfortable. But then I would give up that continuous time of swimming. And so I just said, well, let me just see how long I can go maybe it'll be another lap, maybe it'll be another lap. And I made it the hour. I made it the
Wow.
hour without getting that extra bit of water just to be comfortable in what I was doing. So it's those little things you put in people's head is ask for help and ask for encouragement and give help and give encouragement. And you never know where your words will make impact, and your words make some impact, and carry that through.
Yeah, we never know the influence and impact that we can have on others. It's just an hour swimming. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I feel like such a slug, and I consider myself a fit human being, and I'm like, now I got up my game now. So you're motivating me, so you've become my mentor. So I appreciate you.
It's tough keeping up with her.
I bet. Yeah. Brad?
I want to thank both of you guys as well. Thank you very much. This has been really awesome. I think something I would like to share would be have an ethos, right? Come up with your own ethos. It's okay to steal someone else's ethos, because they're not. They're not
say
exclusive.
borrow.
Borrow, right?
Innovate.
Yeah. So have an ethos. My ethos is always be ready, and it's stolen, of course, but that's okay. Always be ready. So I found that throughout my military career, I've always been ready. When that door opens up, I'm ready to go through, right? And that's I think one of some of the best words of advice I could give to the airmen out there is to just always be ready. Get your PMEs done. Be ready for your PT test. Be ready for whatever's coming. So that way you can just, when the door opens,
You're right there.
you have a choice, right? Yeah, at that point you have a choice. So
Excellent. So Whitaker, anything?
I'm just blown away. I'm honestly I'm sitting there. I'm fortunate. I haven't turned 40 yet, but I'm just thinking about what my next step is, and just there's a lot of airmen that need to hear this, and because you reach a certain age, there's so much more that you can learn. There's so much more that you can do, and kudos to both of you just for stopping by and sharing the story, because I think people it's so easy for us to get stuck in our ways and just I can never do that. I can never do that. And then you just do it. And so it's really nice to hear, because it lets me know personally that life ain't done with me yet. And
exactly.
Life ain't done with me yet. And so I really, really appreciate y'all just coming down. Seriously.
Yeah, it's never over till it's over. Yeah, I appreciate you
thanks,
both.
Jay.
It really has been an honor serving with you over the years and watching your progression to awesome air warriors that are not done yet. So, Sir Whitaker, what do you say you and I go hit the pool?
Yes, I will. I'm gonna probably. I just ate, so I probably shouldn't.
Yeah,
You should wait 20 minutes.
What's the rule?
And this is leave-in conditioner, so I probably shouldn't swim either.
Okay,
so,
right, yeah.
But with that said, I hope everybody out there has a really great, awesome day, and thank you for your listenership. And we will be back next month with another episode of Chevrons.
Thank y'all for this.
Take care.